So the way that you can actually process some of this information, because there's quite a lot on the slide, is that we have two main types of courses. So some courses are focused on streams. So for example, environmental sustainability, international relations, astrophysics, economics, data science, psychology, and biosciences, which you see on the bottom row. These courses are really designed to give you a sense of what it might be like to major in any of these particular subjects. So we have Nihar here, who's a student representative of biology, and we'll be speaking a little bit about what it is actually like to study something like biology in college. How is it different from high school? How can taking the Biosciences Horizons course actually help you kind of anticipate what's to come? So you can go into college with a little bit more preparation, knowing a little bit more about what the bio major might look like. Um, we also have a few courses which are based on particular skills. So entrepreneurship and business in the top row, and then the remaining three courses in the bottom row, which are critical thinking, writing and communication focused on filmmaking, so digital stories, which is about how do you take a story and turn it into something that you put on screen, which is being taught by a documentary filmmaker. And we also have the last writing and communications course, which is called Crafting Your Story for Success, which is really about the written word and trying to understand how you can write anything in any context in a way that only you can, in a way that no machine can and no other human can either. And we've got some out here who is part of Red Brick Words, which is Ashoka student club for writing, write in a creative way, what it's like to write even for the sake of academics, and how you can actually structure your practices of writing so that you can intentionally kind of improve your writing in different ways. So that's what Samira will talk about today. Beyond this, we also just wanted to shed a little bit light on the faculty we have. I won't spend too much time on this slide because there's just too much that one could say if one does, but I'll just that is the focus of this webinar. So in the top row, you see Alok Bhattacharya. He is the head of the biology department at Ashoka, and he is one of the two faculty members for the biosciences course. And I'm really excited to tell you more about the biosciences course because that's the only course that we've had this time, which is actually being offered by two faculty members, Alok Bhattacharya, and also very surprisingly a historian, Kalyan Chakrabarti, who's right in the box right below him, who's a historian. And the course is really about how do we, with our new abilities to analyze genetics, how do we take skeletal and human remains from sites, archaeological sites, analyze them, and actually nuance our understanding of history, which was earlier just based on analyzing non-living matter, like pots and pans and any other thing that you might find in a grave. Um, so these two, faculty members, they come from different disciplines and they are researchers through and through. So this course is really focused on taking you through the methods of doing research in a particular field. And we've chosen these faculty members because they are very strong in the research space. For some of the other courses, we have chosen faculty members for different reasons. So for example, the course that we have on digital stories, we've chosen Nakul Singh Sawhney, who you see in the bottom row on the left side. Um, we've chosen Nakul because he is a practitioner through and through. He is a documentary filmmaker and has had a lot of years of experience creating different types of movies. So that course is more of a practice-based, skill-based course, right? And that's why we've got Nakul here. And finally, for the critical thinking course and for the writing course, which is focused on the written word, the crafting your unique story for success. For critical thinking, we've got Kritika Bhattacharya, who's on the bottom right, and Nancy for the writing course, who's on the bottom left. We've chosen them because of their teaching expertise. They have a lot of experience teaching first-year undergraduates at Ashoka, which makes them great candidates to teach high schoolers as well, I think. Kritika teaches a critical thinking course to every single student who comes into Ashoka as a freshman, regardless of the subject that they are going to study in the future. And Samira and Nihar will also speak a little bit about why it's fun, what critical thinking actually is, why they think it's actually required for all students to do this regardless of their major, right at the beginning of their time at Ashoka as well. And that should give you a sense of why, if you potentially are someone who doesn't really know what they want to study, or can't find a Horizons course right now in the subject that you want, a critical thinking course is a great way to go because it gives you a really good sense of what is kind of expected of you in any subject that you might choose later. And Nancy on the bottom left has been working with the Center for, she's now a part of the Office of High School Programs, so she has a good understanding of high school students. But she's also been part of the Center for Writing and Communication at Ashoka for a long time, which also is a center that, you know, it conducts some courses which are required of undergraduates regardless of their major. So all that said, I would say that if you are interested in the bio course, you can rest assured that the faculty that we've chosen for the bio course, which is also a history course, it's a kind of a combination of the two, is research heavy, and the faculty are researchers through and through. The faculty for the documentary filmmaking course, or well, it's really a filmmaking course in general, is someone who's a practitioner through and through. And the faculty for the writing and communication, crafting a story for success, and critical thinking course are great teachers of young students. So that's kind of how we've made these decisions about course instructors. And I really want to get into the conversation with Samira and Nihar, but before that, I'll just put up the slide really quickly, just so that you know what the deadlines are like. Um, the May the May deadline is May 15th. We've extended it because many students just didn't know about it because they were busy with exams. Students in India are busy with exams at very different times from each other. So we've extended it in a different way for different students, but it's May 15th finally. So May 15th, 11:59 p.m. Submit your applications for the May courses by then. And then the June courses, we have a deadline on June 2nd. So really excited now to get into the conversation with Samira and Nihar. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen really quickly. Great. Awesome. So, Samira and Nihar, like we are going to be speaking a little bit more about the June courses this time, and with a little bit more emphasis, of course, on the biosciences course and on the writing, um, crafting a story for success course, because these are the subjects in which Nihar and Samira, you have your expertise. So maybe we could start with Nihar. Nihar, if you could just begin by introducing yourself, and giving us a sense of like what kind of what's about your interest in biology.
Yeah, hi Paritosh. Hi to everyone on the seminar webinar right now. So I'm Nihar. I'm currently a third year at Ashoka University. I've been the student representative for the biology department for the last academic year. My interest in biology before college was mostly towards ecology and animal behavior. I grew up watching a lot of Nat Geo and Discovery, and that's what really sparked my interest in animal behavior. I came into Ashoka and I got a whole breadth of different biology subfields through our courses, which are part of the biology major and biology minor requirements. And through that, I actually discovered my love for molecular biology, which is something I've been doing internships for and doing research in myself as well on campus. So I think while I did have a lot of interest in biology before college, I think that doing courses at Ashoka is what actually allowed me to delve into subjects, into different fields under biology that I really found my interest in. So yeah, that's where my interest in biology comes in.
So Nihar, I mean, let's say that someone is a high school student and they know something about genetics, they know something about biomolecules, which is kind of what the Horizons course that we have on offer is on about. Um, how would, I mean, one reason to take a Horizons course is to say like, okay, this will give you a sense of, it'll give you more knowledge in this field. Um, it might give you a little bit of a sense of what it's like to major in bio, at least in terms of this is the type of level of stuff that you would study in college. Um, but you seem to be pointing to how studying biology in Ashoka kind of like opened up your mind, and actually increased your level of interest in bio itself. So if you could just speak a little bit more that a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So I think one reason why I feel the biology draw Ashoka and why taking a course in with Ashoka Horizons in biology would be a great opportunity for any high schooler interested in biology would definitely be the kind of learning that we do here. So for example, while I come from an ICSE background, and I know a lot of students, high school students from an ICSE and CBSE background have in the initial weeks here at Ashoka do struggle with some of the courses and the way they're taught. And I feel like the way biology is taught as Ashoka, while looking at all the processes, where it doesn't focus on mugging things up, but rather learning concepts and applying them in different situations to understand processes going on, not just at a molecular level, but also at the population level. That kind of insight is what gives students like me who are interested in biology the knowledge to actually how do things from one field connect to another. Because at the end of the day, biology is fully interlinked at all levels. And that knowledge is not something that we made available to any high school student in their studies because all they want to focus on is these concepts they want to mug up for the exam and then just score really well in. And here at Ashoka is where you actually get the opportunity to explore topics that you are interested in, not just genetics, but looking at things like, okay, single nucleotide polymorphisms, if you want to go into that. We have faculty who are knowledgeable on this subject and offer great courses where we can actually delve into these subjects on our own. So combining a lot of experienced faculty with the option to do what you're interested in as well allows students to actually grasp the depth of what a complicated and interesting field biology is. The biosciences program offered by Ashoka Horizons is just an example of this, I feel, where it delves into archaeology and looking at DNA, RNA samples that we can analyze from archaeological sites using the tools that we have developed now because of advances in technology, and using that to understand how things were changed earlier, how things were. So, for example, Professor Kalyan looks at ancient food practices and ancient animal herding practices. And information on that can be understood by looking at DNA samples of animals and humans that have been found in archaeological sites. That kind of knowledge is not something you would find in a high school classroom. And the ability to understand, okay, what I can do with a sample, what process exists for me to analyze it. That's something you can only get through a project-based course, which the Ashoka Horizons Biosciences is.
No, that's really well said, Nihar. I want to actually ask you to speak a little bit more about why, especially like the introduction to bio courses at Ashoka, and how some of the topics that are covered in those courses are have a lot of parallels with what we're offering at Horizons, and why those courses are actually really good ways to actually get introduced to bio as a broad field overall. I'm going to ask you that, but just in one second, I just want to really just clarify what the bio course is about, just so everyone in the audience is also on the same page. It's like um when we're trying to understand the past, um, what we've been doing for most of human history as historians is that we've been digging up sites and finding things there and looking at the things and trying to create patterns. So we find like pans and pots, and maybe we find some like inscriptions. And then we're like, okay, like we see the colors are being used in this way out here. We know a little bit about the materials that were available for them to produce these pots here. And now we can see that, okay, this is kind of what must have happened at that time, right? Now we've come to a point where we can actually, through genetic analysis and other types of biological analysis that I don't know the specifics about, take the actual like human remains that are in sites as well, like bones, and things like that, and split them up and see like, okay, like now we can actually figure out not just what we can figure out from pots and pans, but we can actually see something about um, the ethnicity of these people and the time when they were alive. So that adds a whole new data set of information, which raises entirely new questions of historical questions of who were these people? Were they only one type of people? Did they come at different times, etc.? So it's completely changing the way that we write history. So that is really what this course is about. It, on the one hand, gives you the skills of genetic analysis, which we have in biology, and some other specific skill sets within that. And it also gives you a sense of how is history written, and how can how do not just how do two fields come together for us to create knowledge in a broad way. So Nihar, could you speak a little bit about the introduction to biology sequence at Ashoka, what its relation is with genetics as a topic, and why, therefore, a Horizons course, even though this topic seems really specialized, might be a good way for students to get introduced to the study of biology broadly at university.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, the Ashoka Horizons course focuses on the ability to trace biomolecules like DNA, RNA, lipids, proteins, etc., and how the analysis of those can give us information about the past. The way that the biology major and biology minors are constructed at Ashoka also allows us to delve into these different molecules. individually at a more deeper level. For example, the first course that biology majors have to take at Ashoka is the Introduction to Biology 1, which is Genetics and Evolution, where we really look at DNA and RNA as specific molecules and trace their discoveries and trace how different technologies can interact with them to give us more understanding about things like the human genome, things like other animals, etc. And so I think this course not only does it delve into how interdisciplinary biology can be with its overlap with history to form archaeology, for example, but also looks at gives you an understanding of how different topics will be taught at Ashoka as well. So, aside from DNA, one of the other things this course will also be looking at and focusing on are things like lipids and proteins, and those are things we'll delve into in biology courses at Ashoka as well later on. So I think while this course being interdisciplinary in nature and while looking at a specific subfield in biology, it's still giving you a very good overview about what kind of topics are going to be discussed throughout your biology course at Ashoka. And of course, like I said, mentioned before, the way of teaching is what I really want to emphasize on because that's what really differentiates Ashoka from other institutes in India, especially. And that's what actually made me fall in love with biology. And I'm really excited for high school students to take this course and understand about how deeply we can delve into this field.
Yeah, I think there is something very interesting to note here is that history as a subject, I mean, what we know about history till about, say, 50, 60 odd years back, before we made a lot of progress in what is now known as biotechnology, was either through written documents that scholars or historians would analyze, or through stories that have been passed down via generation. And what that led to was some sort of conjecture, people trying to fill in the gaps because as human beings, we are designed to seek out patterns. We are not comfortable with missing information. So there was a lot of subjectivity to these stories, a lot of conjecture. So, I mean, it's only very recently that we are figuring out evidence about how certain things that we have been taught in history have happened, have not actually taken place. So this is an exciting way of learning about the history of mankind, about animals, nature, even human beings, but this time from a very scientific point of view. And when we say scientific, is that you have a hypothesis which can be proven, which then becomes irrefutable fact. No longer is it conjecture, no longer are they just stories. You present evidence in terms of these RNA and DNAs that you mentioned that do tell a complete story, right? So I think for me that is a very interesting interplay between two different disciplines to look at not just biology through the lens of history, but also look at history through the lens of biology. And can you just speak a little bit of that, Nihar? Because this is so different from how we study these two subjects in school. They're so clinical in nature. History is mostly about dates, right? And about events. Biology is all about looking at a couple of things under the microscope. So, how did your view of studying this subject change completely? Let's start from your first year.
Okay, so as a biology major, I've also had the privilege of taking a lot of cross-listed courses, which are one of Ashoka's specialty. Having to those who don't have a lot of information, I'll give a little bit of context. So Ashoka offers a lot of different courses across departments that are oftentimes cross-listed. Now, this would mean that they fall under two or maybe even three departments at the same time. And it could also include having a course which has faculty from multiple departments covering different sections. So, through that exposure, looking at biology with psychology, looking at biology with physics, even looking at biology with history, for example, and sociology as well, and environmental studies, you really get an understanding about how interlinked not just biological processes are, but how interlinked our biology is with everything we do in the world, how interlinked it is with culture, how interlinked it is with things like human behavior. And that kind of understanding I only got when I took some of these cross-listed courses. Even some of our foundation courses, for example, mind and behavior is something that really actually gives you an interdisciplinary look at how philosophy, neuroscience, and biology can be interlinked together. And I think doing these courses is what made me understand that, okay, when I think about biology, it's not just dinosaurs and DNA, but it's also looking at things like behavior at a human level. It's also looking at things like mental illnesses. It's also looking at things like prehistoric samples. And that is what makes my interest in all subfields of biology amplify even more. there's always so much to learn. And I feel like at Ashoka, you can get an understanding of just how much there is for you to discover and then nail down on whatever specific field you might be really, really interested in.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nehar. You were speaking a lot about also Ashoka's kind of unique approach to teaching. And that's great. But the thing is that that also comes with a new set of expectations, like some like expectations that you hadn't had before. So I actually wanted, Samira, if you could speak a little bit about um broadly, what do you think is actually different in terms of the expectations that Ashoka has of its students, regardless of subject, compared to high school? And I think, like, just for context, a lot of people know about our Young Scholars program, which is a program for high schoolers that we've been running for a long time, and we're offering it this summer as well. And some people are a bit upset that applications for that are closed. And we keep saying that take a look at Horizons, because what we're doing at Horizons is, rather than a kind of a lecture-based format where you sit and listen to an expert kind of speak at you, at Horizons, we're trying to recreate the seminar-style discussion, which is much more intimate, much more discussion focused, and requires you to do actually resembles college quite a lot more, especially the harder parts of college. So Samira, if you could speak a little bit about regardless of nature and what are the particular challenges of that, and that I think will shed some light on why doing a Horizons course as any subject is worthwhile, because it kind of familiarizes you a little bit with the format of teaching at Ashoka.
Honestly, as an ICSE student all throughout high school and school before that, I can see Nihar smiling. I think he understands the pain that we've been through. But as a ICSE student, you're kind of required to just rely on memory and rote learning and just taking section A and learning it up and writing it in the exam. Literally, that's just the format. But in university, especially at a college like Ashoka, which is liberal arts, which is very holistic, you really have to get into the depths of things and kind of take everything and get into all its various layers, which in high school you're just told to ignore because it's not in syllabus, right? But in college, there's just no getting away with anything. Like you kind of have to be there, be present for every aspect of whatever you're studying because that is what is tested and that is what is required of you as a student to get into the depth and the layers of whatever it is you're studying. And even about the small things, like in school you can kind of get away with just about anything, like whether it's coming to class, whether it's talking in class, you just put your head down if you don't feel like paying attention. But in university you're just required to be so present in the moment at all times, to take part in discussions, to brainstorm, to kind of bounce off ideas off of your peers and just make your learning process much more in depth. And that is something that we're definitely deprived of in school. So Ashoka really makes up and compensates for that absence.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very fair point about being present and being a participant in your own learning, which is very, very different from what you are typically exposed to in school. I see a lot of that is changing now, but still that change is going to take quite a few years to actually permeate through every single town and every single city. But I wanted to particularly ask you, so the theme of this webinar basically was to give students an idea about some of the most crucial skills that are required for success, quote unquote. And that success could look very different to very different people, because even the you know the expectations from success are also changing. So while we do speak about success or basically making a path for yourself in the future, a couple of skills actually have been on the forefront even before this discussion about preparing for the 21st century came about. And with the advent of AI, a lot of talk and integration of AI, there are certain things that are so typical to human beings that essentially are going to be all the more required in the future if we want to create space for ourselves. Primarily, the two foremost being critical thinking and good communication,
Mhm.
right? Because that is again at the heart of what we do with each other. At this point in time, we are also communicating and we are trying to do a good job so that there are high school students who may take advantage of this discussion. So I know that critical thinking is a foundation course. It is mandatory for every student who comes into Ashoka for the first year to take this. Now, I want to understand when you first started taking the critical thinking course and when you had taken the critical thinking course, what changed for you? Why did you feel like, yes, this was the right decision? I see why now this was
Yeah.
required as a foundation course. Can you just shed a little bit of light on that?
Yeah. So that insight or that aha moment that, oh, this course is actually beneficial happened way later for me. I had this course in my first year, second semester, and I entered the classroom and I was just beyond intimidated and I was bored because I didn't really feel that this course could actually aid me in college. It felt like a requirement that I have to do, a prerequisite for my graduation to finish my credits, of course. But when I studied the course and when I actually had my classes for psych or my classes for entrepreneurship, which is my major and my minor respectively, I realized that critical thinking is something that is going to be with you till the end of time. Like it's something that you need, it's a tool that will help you think clearly and organize your thoughts and be able to question assumptions that you had, be able to push the horizons literally and kind of change your own mind on things. It really helps shape your mind as a student, definitely. And that's something that I really didn't see the value in when I was just studying the course. But as I proceeded, especially in a college like Ashoka, which is so all about the depth and the layers and the essay writing, it just helps you to organize your thoughts, think very clearly, and be able to communicate as effectively as possible. Because you really get into just every nook and cranny of whatever it is you're studying or learning about. And it just genuinely really helped, especially in a liberal arts institution.
So, yeah, Paratosh, you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, the critical thinking course is one where when you take any subject in college, and you're asked to write a research paper,
Mhm.
what you're doing in that research paper is making an argument. And the thing that makes something an argument is that it's contestable, right? So it has to be something that is up for debate. That is what the critical thinking course teaches you. So in the critical thought thinking horizons course, you will be asked to put forward an argument that is contestable, and then you will be constantly given counter arguments that you need to rebut. And that is kind of the whole issue that we take through in the critical thinking course. So I just wanted to say what it is and how, therefore, it's applicable.
Yeah, and I also wanted to again just to take a cue from what Paritosh just mentioned. This entire thing about debate, wherever we think of debate, we think of people on the news probably arguing at each other, speaking at each other, because that's pretty much the kind of debating we've been exposed to, right? But I think people tend to forget that the idea of debate is yes to present two contradictory ideas, but from the point of view of understanding the other person's perspective and finding what is the common ground in between, which has a larger truth behind it and which has a more contestable truth behind it, right? So I think the critical thinking course also helps you argue better. And what do you think would be a use case scenario or application based scenario? And this I open to both Nihar and Samira about having a skill like this. And I call this a skill because I definitely feel it's something that you get better at the more you practice it. It's not something that you are born with. A lot of us aren't. But when you do practice and you get better at it, how do you see this as a use case helping you in not just your academics, but also in life beyond? Could be in your personal relationships, could be at with your friends, could be at a workplace, could even be at a university. So, how does this help you in your day to day life?
Um, I think when it comes to forming an argument, you basically it boils down to communicating effectively. And again, just like something like a skill like critical thinking, it's something that will not leave you on a day to day basis. You're constantly communicating, you're constantly negotiating. It's something that adds validity to your own character. It adds accuracy in whatever you're saying. It's a tool that will help people take you more seriously when you're speaking sense, when you're speaking with clarity, and when you're speaking with intention. And I think when you have those skills kind of ticked off and you have experience in honing those skills, because again, you're not born with these things. They are things that can be taught and refined over time. They're not something that are just inherent, innate qualities that everyone has. When you do that, you just add a lot more accuracy in whatever it is you're saying in the real world sense. So I think it's something that again just doesn't leave you.
Yeah, if I were to add a couple points more, I think like most things, and I know you've heard us throw this word around a lot, like most things, Ashoka, critical thinking as a skill is also interdisciplinary in nature. If you get an idea, if you can apply it in one field, you can apply it across as well. And it's just a form of thinking that then you start um, using innately in everyday life as well. And honestly, I think one of the things taught in our intro to critical thinking courses as well is the organization of thoughts, which I feel is really important just for the normal well-being of people as well. And I think a lot of the courses that actually emphasize on critical thinking, a lot of our bio courses also emphasize on looking at and questioning different processes and deep diving into different papers and whatnot. I think they give you an idea about how you can approach things in life as well. Whether you're looking at, let's say, someone's political statement, whether you're looking at a research paper in any field, having the basis of critical thinking allows you to actually understand the different thought processes a lot better. And I think it's you can apply it in any field, regardless of whether it's your primary field or not.
I think that's the fair point that both of you bring up. And I also, there's a lot of use of the word speaking better, writing better, communicating better. And again, as a high school student, how do you think that skills like being able to write better, being able to think in a more organized fashion, being able to talk properly, and also to be able to present your ideas in an impactful manner, which is something that we are trying to do with our digital stories course. It's where you take an idea and you figure out a way to best present it to an audience so that they are able to understand what it is that you are trying to say without a lot of exposition required. So, how do you think are skills like these useful for high school students? How will that help them, irrespective of whether it's a child entering grade 9 or it's a child preparing for grade 12 or 10 board exams? How do you think these skills would help high school?
If I were to go first, so one qualm about high school, I think a lot of my generation definitely would share, is that we're not taught real life skills. We don't know how to do taxes and we don't know how to do anything basically. And I feel like learning communication, learning how to speak effectively, learning how to present your ideas in a concise format is something you're going to need throughout your life. And actually getting exposed to it as early as you can is probably the best idea. When I did, so I was also part of the Young Scholars program that Ashoka had offered, unfortunately online. But I think what I was exposed to in the Young Scholars program was the ability to present better and the ability to form my own thoughts and to present them in a way that's understandable to people, regardless of what field they're part of. So I think, yeah, actually learning real life skills is and being exposed to it as early as you can is what the Horizons course also allows you to do.
Also, just quickly adding on to what he said, something very interesting that he pointed out is to be able to write effectively and speak with clarity. It's like imagine a physics major and a psychology major having a conversation and they both understand each other very, very well. That's how you know that you've achieved that skill. If I can make a physics major understand something, keeping the technicalities in mind, keeping the jargon in mind, and they can understand me, that means that I've done a good job at communicating. And I think that's just something that we're deprived of in high school. They don't lay emphasis on that because that's simply not the way that we're tested. But of course, that changes in college. And yeah, essentially, to be able to write and speak well, they go hand in hand, and it's something that the session does teach you very, very well.
Samira, I mean, I wanted to kind of just ask Samira this kind of last question, really, unless Ankita, you want to speak about anything else, and then open up the floor to questions
Yeah, I
from
think
the
we
audience.
on the floor for questions after this. Yeah.
Sounds good. So, everyone in the audience, if you have any questions, we're going to open it up really soon. So you can kind of unmute and speak, or you could just type it in the Q&A, and you can even let us know who you would like to answer the question. Samira, um, we are offering a course called Crafting Your Story for Success in the June session. And you are part of Red Brick Awards, which is the student club for writing at Ashoka. Can you speak a little bit about what that course is about um, and how you think it could be of value to students who are looking to create a space for themselves to learn how to write? Um, in I mean with an eye towards many things, which could be writing research papers, etc., but particularly with respect to writing your college application, where your story for success is really kind of the subject of
Right. So, what I find very, very interesting and also very needed in the course that Horizons offers is, in order to write well, no matter what you're writing, whether it's a poem, whether it's a research paper or a college application, what you really need is you need to know yourself. You have to have that knowledge of who I am from within and whether it shows in my writing. What sets writers apart from one another is their subjective experiences. It's what makes them unique, and it's what the experiences that they carry and that reflects in their writing. And I don't mean it becomes a personal piece or it becomes something autobiographical in nature. It's just that every writer has this uniqueness about them, which this course really, really emphasizes on. And especially in terms of your college application, something that you really need is a good sense of self. You kind of need to understand your own voice and you need to be able to know yourself inwardly so that you can express yourself in a college application. And one more thing, speaking of the same thing, is just because one is a good writer does not mean that writing the college essay is going to be easy breezy. I've been writing since I was like 9 years old, literally, and still writing my college essay was probably one of the hardest things I did because it was just so difficult to find myself in a box of 350 words where I just cannot go one character above. So, when you have that deep knowledge of yourself, even when you're placed in that box, you can kind of move around very freely because you know exactly what you have to write in order to convey yourself as accurately as possible and as clearly as possible. And this course really helps you to discover those things about yourself and to find your those inner quirks that make you who you are and uniquely you. And it just helps you to craft a better piece and no matter what you're writing, so it kind of helps you along the way for any kind of writing that you encounter.
cool. Thanks a lot, Samira. I think that's well said. We've opened up the floor to questions. So if you have anything, please put it in the Q&A box. You can ask us anything about the Verizon's courses we have on offer. You can ask Samira or Nihar anything about the particular subjects that they are best versed with. Nihar, chemistry and bio, Samira, psych, entrepreneurship and writing. You could even ask us anything to do with what we've spoken about today or anything else really. So it's up to you. And in the meantime, while we wait for some questions, Nihar, Samira, if there's anything you want to say that we haven't covered, then please go ahead.
Yeah, students can also raise their hands in case you want us to unmute you. So feel free to ask your questions. We have a question. What may be useful in these courses is also to provide an idea of what next beyond the graduation in a specific field. For example, what can one look forward to post a biosciences graduation course as a career or higher study choices that students of Ashoka have typically exercised? I think, Neha, that's a great question because a lot of students also wonder this what if scenario. And I think the job landscape is also changing. So there is a lot of interdisciplinarity when it comes to research or even the practice based. So do you want to take this question, like what next after you graduate from, say, for example, the biosciences course? What are the kind of avenues that are open for biosciences graduates?
Well, I am one of those people who want to know what avenues are open for me after my graduation, definitely. In terms of what students at Ashoka, what my seniors and their seniors have done after a bachelor at Ashoka, most of them have, as far as I know, have gone for their master's and PhD courses as well. To get an understanding of this, if I were to provide my email, you can definitely reach out to me and I can connect you with the department as well because they keep a list of where all of our graduates are. And I think that'll give you a pretty solid idea of what all fields they've entered after doing their bachelor's. A lot of them have also taken the interdisciplinary nature to heart, taken positions like curators at different galleries and museums as well. So there's definitely a lot of scope for a biology degree at Ashoka and in India as well, because we have a pretty thriving biotech industry. So I think looking at how things are going on in the future with biology and biological development being things that are really being focused on, having a biosciences degree really does help because it allows you to delve into any other field where an expertise on bioscience is required. If people need life sciences consultants, they look at biology based individuals who have education in biology, not people who have education in business or law, but they look at people who have a biological background because you can understand what topics and products are being talked about that way. So while this course looking at this course specifically, it'll give you an understanding of how biology at Ashoka is as well. I think that way you can actually understand whether you would want to commit to this kind of learning and whether this is something that's really intriguing for you. I think that's going to be one of the advantages each student is going to have for this course. Again, I'll drop my email ID if you want to reach out for specifics. I can connect you with someone in the department who can and has those statistics as well.
Yeah, maybe the questions can be sent to us at our Horizons email ID. Nihar, we can get in touch with you so
Yeah,
that you don't get bombarded with a lot of questions. There was
okay,
a
that
question
totally
that I
works.
wanted to, yeah, there was a question I wanted to highlight for the benefit of everyone. Somebody had asked us that whether you can take a May course and a June course. Yes, you absolutely can, provided you apply for the May course before the 15th of May. So apply fast. And then after that, you can immediately take a skills-based course from our June lineup. Our email ID is there in the chat box. In case you have questions, you can write to us at horizons at the rate ashoka.edu.in. Yeah, Jaya, maybe you can address the questions at the Horizons email ID and we will pass it on to Nihar. And then we can exchange the correspondence that we have from Nihar to you in case you have any specific questions about the biosciences course. Do we have any other questions? I just wanted to throw it out for both of you before we wait for any other questions to have that. If you were a high schooler and if you had access to these courses, how do you think it would have benefited you? I mean, not to say take away from anything where you are right now, because every present is a good present to be in, but just so that you would have had these opportunities in your high school. Probably you guys are still very young. If we have had these opportunities in our high school, how do you think it would make the transition from high school to university better or easier?
I think it would just give you the right kind of environment that thrives in college. In school we're really deprived of that, but with these courses we could kind of be able to refine whatever it is that we know and be able to apply it in a more real world setting, if that makes sense. So this kind of like simulates what a university classroom or perhaps what a college level you know institution would kind of offer. This course kind of speeds up that process for you and prepares you mentally more than anything and academically to take on whatever college gives you, especially if you're coming to like a liberal arts college like Ashoka, where these skills like writing, speaking, critical thinking, all of these things will be, the top three skills that you will literally need. So it would definitely prepare you better.
I think just to add one more point onto that, the earlier you get more exposure, the better it is for you. I think that's something I've actually understood when I actually joined college and I got a lot more exposure. But exposing yourself to different environments, different sorts of teaching, different faculty is what will give you the knowledge about where you want to be and who you want to be studying with, where you see yourself in the future. And again, all of these things will then translate better into your whole understanding of what your interests are and where you want to go. So I think just for me, because I was able to do the Young Scholars Program as well, I was able to get that exposure. Um, but coming from an ICSC, CBSE background, getting the exposure to this type of teaching is, I think, very integral. And it's really important to do it as early as you can so you understand whether this is something that suits your learning needs as well.
That's great. Thank you both. Do we have any other questions for either the Horizons team or for Samira and Nihar? In any case, I want to thank both of you for taking out the time and to being present here. I'm pretty sure that a lot of high schoolers will benefit from your experiences, from what you have seen and what you have experienced at university life, and especially those who are now at the precipice of making important decisions about university and what kind of streams and subjects that they should opt for. So thank you so much for being a part of this webinar, and thank you for everyone who's attended this webinar. We hope you were able to walk away with some useful information that you will be able to apply irrespective of where you are in your college application decisions. It will help you upskill yourself to better prepare not just for your high school life, but also for life beyond. And as we say at high school programs office, get future ready with Horizons. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.